Hey, it's Jefferson coming at you from the Jazz Lounge of Tubelandia. Today I'm going to be doing the not very official vinyl tag of 2026. Let's get to it on the other side. So this vinyl tag was created by David Atkinson, and I got inspiration by him, and I also seen some of my friends, Vinyl Piper, Groove Seeker, and Dom from Seeking the Thread doing theirs. So I thought I'd try my hand at it. This is actually my first time to do a tag, so bear with me. Um, First and foremost, best pickup of 2025. This is pretty easy. It's this Weldon Irvine in Harmony. This was an example of It Takes a Village because while I couldn't make it to WFMU this year, Chance, Chris the Groove Seeker did, Jason Rojas, Arnaldo Fidelis Frequency were there. And so I was like, guys, please, please, let me send you a list of a few things to keep an eye out for. And sure enough, there were not one, but two of these lists. And a couple of them contacted me right away to tell me about it. And so with the team effort of Ronaldo having a turntable to listen to and chance to verify the condition, they were able to work out a deal with the seller, and I paid for it, and then it got shipped to me by Ronaldo. I was very, very happy. It was better than advertised, and it's one that's been on my want list for a long time. I mean, this Weldon Irvine is just sublime. Strata East label is more sublime. Can't recommend this enough. Second, favorite live music of 2025. Well, this is easy. It was Jack White at the Brooklyn Paramount, Brooklyn Paramount at the Brooklyn Paramount, and just crunchy, nonstop, intense, blues-driven, hard enough, hardcore rock and roll. It was so good. Here's a little clip. Number three. My vinyl record collection in 10 years' time will be bigger, smaller, about the same. Well, the hope is that it will be smaller, but more well curated. I guess time will tell. Fourth, you move into a new home, you announce, and they play this one song to announce your arrival. Well, for me and really my wife too, there's only one, and that's "God Is on the Radio" by Queens of the Stone Age. It's very, very hard driving, lots of low end, lots of intricate bass, lots of mid range, highs. It layers upon layers, lots of fast and slow passages. Um, it's just a great track and by a great band. And I like to call that song actually the Widowmaker because I've gone to audio shows many, many times and I've put it on and it will reveal very quickly if your audio is not balanced or properly matched because it becomes a flabby, confusing mess if it's not tuned properly. But if it's tuned properly, oh, what a great song. And yeah, that's what we say, play to say, we're here now. Number five, show two albums highlighting a favorite male and female singer. Well, for the male, um, it's a million options, but what I chose was Damo Suzuki from Cannes. And Damo is a very interesting figure in that, he kind of joined Can at a very opportune time. He sings in Japanese, German, a little bit of English, a little bit of gibberish, a little bit of just weird noises. Yet somehow it works in the context of this album and the other two that follow with him, which I think are the best of the Can albums out there. The origin story is pretty cool too because uh the story is that couple members of Can were sitting at a cafe in Germany, and they see this like what they thought was a homeless guy just kind of skipping down the way and singing and just kind of generally acting goofy, and they thought, oh, this guy will be perfect for us. And so they approached him and said, hey, would you like to come join our band and sing tonight? And he just like, yeah, sure. When do we go to rehearse or whatever? And then they said, oh, we don't need to rehearse. You just come as you are. And Damo did, and it worked for what it was. So Damo Suzuki is my favorite male. And then for female artists, as with most of these questions, there's a million different choices. There's no real right or wrong answer. um, but I selected Nico Case. This album is particular one is called Blacklisted. It's kind of tongue in cheek. You can see her; she's under the bus here, been thrown under the bus. Her singing songwriting is it's very intricate, dense, very dark. And then her singing is very, very melodic, and she's got a huge range. She really gets to the heart of the matter quite quickly. She has a variety of different styles, and sometimes she gets lumped into that kind of alt country thing, especially with her early albums, but it's really not that. It's just more her own sort of thing. She's also a singer with the punk band New Pornographers, so she's got that edge that she brings to this her solo work. So I can't recommend Nico Case enough. Number six, top three soul dance albums. I kind of went all over the map for this one, but in no certain order. Pick the Meters, their first album. Um, they sort of they didn't invent funk, they didn't invent soul funk, but they basically put their own stamp on it. Syncopation, polyrhythmic. It's just really, really good. They set the mold, or sorry, they broke the mold for others to follow, but they also kind of set up their own thing. The Meters are the Meters. Just you can't not dance when this album's put on. Second. Uh, I picked Stand by Sly and the Family Stone. I mean, I picked this one, but you could basically select any album from this era from like 67 to 71 and it works. I mean, this particular one has got Everyday People, uh, Sex Machine, and a bunch of other hits. It's really, really good. The next one's kind of off the beaten path for dance music, but Fela Kuti and the Africa 70, ITT, International Thief Thief. So this is one of those Fela songs that, even by Fela standards, just gets your ass moving. And as the song builds, it builds to its climax. It's talking about, like political corruption in Nigeria, and basically how meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Exploitation abounds, but then somehow they find a way to shake their ass during the whole thing. So this is one of my favorite, quote unquote, dance albums. Number seven, a track you hate from an album you love. Well, that took a minute because most of the albums I like because it's the entire album. But if I had to pick one, it would be Joni Mitchell's "Squirt and Spark," but the last song, "Twisted," which is just almost a throwaway song. I was kind of surprised it made the album. It's kind of fun to hear Cheech Marin doing his thing and Jody talking about her analyst, but it doesn't really fit, and I don't particularly care for it. So that's number seven. Number eight, one album from 6 decades. So I kind of took some liberties with this one. I started in the 50s through the 2010s, and that's sort of where I stopped. That's sort of where, there's a lot of great music after 2010, and I love it. But I focused on the decades before then. I'm an old guy. I kind of went with what I knew. But anyway, in no uncertain order, for the 50s, and this is kind of cliche, but it is what it is. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. I mean, this set the mold. This set the die for everything that came after. And just look at Elvis. He's having such a good time. So that's the 50s. For the 60s, I selected Doors self-titled album. So this is a original Monarch stereo, and this is a psychedelic album. It it's rocky. It has the epic "The End," which basically got banned every time they tried to play it, and it's represents psychedelia, Southern California style. The Dead were doing the same thing in the Bay Area, but I think this is a good touchstone for the '60s. For the 70s, another impossibly hard decade to pick just one album. But I selected Roxy Music for Your Pleasure. And the reason I did is because it's one of those albums where, it represents, okay, on the surface, it's glam, but it's also sort of a, touching off point for Brian Eno, who left the band after this album to go into his kind of electronic ambient um, stuff that he did. Um, and then, Roxy Music changed completely, after he left to a little bit more straightforward, prog rock, psychedelic rock. Anyway, I think it's a great representative of the 70s. For the 80s, equally hard decade, but I selected Meat is Murder by the Smiths. I mean, basically, reason being is this is like sort of the defining new age album of the 80s, if you will. And it was the one that I really got turned on to the Smiths by when I was in college. And, I just really, it built from there. The irony of the Meat is Murder is not lost. And I just love this album. I think it's a great 80s touchstone. For the 90s, this one was a little bit easier, but not really. I selected Mad Season, which is sort of a super group with members of Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Screaming Trees. They only did the one album. Lane Stanley died shortly thereafter. And then Mark Lanigan, who was also a songwriter and sang a couple songs, he rejoined the band in the early 2000s or sorry, mid 2000s, 2010, and they did a tour together as Mad Season. But this just has it all. It represents that Seattle sound so succinctly, and it kind of blends all the different aspects of the Seattle sound there, and it's sort of the highlight of the '90s. So Mad Season above, sorry, not yeah, Mad Season above for the '90s, and then for the 2010s, I didn't get too far afield. I selected Mark Lanigan Bubblegum, which is his best solo album in my opinion. It's got Mark, it's got PJ Harvey's on here, a bunch of members of the Guns N' Roses, also Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. So Bubblegum, Mark Lanigan for the 2010s. And alas, that's sort of where I stopped on my decades, album per decade. Next, number nine. If you could have a day alone with one artist, who would it be? I selected Jimmy Page. And then number 10, what would be their must ask questions? And, I would be Jimmy, when are we going to get some audiophile versions of the Led Zeppelin catalog? Why don't you let those tapes out so we can, you know, get another crack at it? And the way I would convince him is I would take his 2014 remixes and I would play them side by side with this one, a good Robert Ludwig Led Zeppelin 2. I mean, it's punchy, dynamic, it's clear. It hasn't been topped for all the different pressings that are out there. The other one I'd play for him as an example of what could be done is Led Zeppelin 1 classic records. So I know some people like to bash classic records, or some people think they're overrated. I don't know. To me, pound for pound, it's the best way to hear the Led Zeppelin catalog and the best audio fidelity. I've listened to Plum UK's, I've listened to a couple flavors of the George Pierce versions, of the original US, and I always come back to this one. It's the one that I think represents them the best. And if anything, I hope that those two records could convince Jimmy Page to let someone else have a crack at the catalog. Maybe Kevin Gray, perhaps Bernie Grumman again, but I think Kevin would do a great job. Maybe let those tapes go, Jimmy, and make some dubs. Just a thought, but I think this would do it. 11. Show a track that brings a tear to your eye, or are you a heartless bastard? Well, depending on who you ask, I am a heartless bastard. But that said, there's one song that gets me every time, and it's the song "The Mountain" by Levon Helm, which is on Dirt Farmer. Um, so a little backstory: Levon got throat cancer early in the uh, early 2000s, and I saw him at a show in Little Rock, Arkansas, back then, and he was just playing drums, and his voice was very barely a whisper, and it was just like so it's sad. I thought that's it for Levon. We're not, all those great songs from the band, we're not going to hear again. And, it's going to be just a memory. I mean, he was playing drums, his daughter Amy was singing, but that was it. And then, he was under treatment, he got better, and then his voice started to come back, and then he released this. And the track on here that gets me is The Mountain, which was written by Steve Earle, but it's about Appalachia, about coal miners. Basically, they're locked into their job, they're locked into this existence, they're tied to the land where they were raised. And so it's sort of heartbreaking because their lives are so dangerous and so risky, and their lives are so short because of black lung or potential accidents or whatever, but they're still clinging to that lifestyle. I was born on this mountain. This mountain's my home, and that's probably where I'm going to die too. It's just so poetic. And Steve Earle's a great songwriter, and Levon's interpretation, it's very hard to go wrong. So, The Mountain by Levon Hill. Number 12. Show an album from an artist you tried to love but don't sure why you bother. Um, For me, if I don't really love the album, I try not to hold on to it. But that said, I was, listening to Return to Forever Romantic Warrior. I'd have to put it up here. But basically, to me, this is the point where jazz fusion sort of jumped the shark, and it became a little self-indulgent, a little cheesy, a little kind of like unfocused. And even though I love Al Di Meola, I love Chick Corea, I love all the players in Return to Forever, and some of those earlier albums I can tolerate, but Romantic Warrior, it's just almost too preposterous. So that's the album there. Um, Number 13. Show an album from an artist that disappoints you. So I got a couple of examples here. First, this guy, Miles Davis. I mean, changed the whole course of jazz 4 or 5 times. Um, Basically, an amazing player, amazing ability to select other players to create, to execute his ideas of jazz composition. And he redid this over and over, recreated himself over and over. Without question, one of the, if not the top figure in jazz of all time. So you make your arguments. Okay. That said, you know, as a human being, as a person, he was pretty much reprehensible in every measure, right? Starting with, he beat all of his wives and all of his girlfriends, and he had a history of being insecure about that. Betty Davis, Betty Mayberry, he thought she was cheating with him with Jimi Hendrix, and was had a violent temper, and so she left him. So it just not a good dude in that regard. Uh, Second, he didn't really respect other artists who he didn't get, and he didn't really give them a chance either. So, for example, Ornette Coleman, Miles was like, why is he playing that plastic trumpet, and he doesn't really play the chords correctly, and I don't get it, right? And so he didn't get it. Did he really try? Who cares? But it's just like, okay, don't shit on somebody that just because you don't get it, Miles. And so, that was just kind of weird. And then, he's also notorious for like, not paying his band, or, bad business decisions, or like he famously screwed his nephew out of some money he was owed after he told his nephew, you're not good enough to play with me. So just kind of a jerk, kind of disappointing. But you got at the end of the day, you got to separate the art for the artist. And I think Miles Davis' contributions to jazz and music in general, um, are so important that I can just kind of set aside, his personal behavior, but it doesn't mean he wasn't an asshole and disappoints me in that regard. And then another one, extra credit or extra non-credit, and it's low-hanging fruit, I know, but Ted Nugent, right? So say what you say what you will about Ted Nugent, you know, that four album run of self-titled, Cat Scratch Fever, Free For All, Double I Gonzo in the '70s, that's as strong and good and rocky a run of four albums as anybody, I mean, really good stuff. Um, but yeah, he was a dick. He's now like he's considered a right wing mouthpiece, and big whatever, big fuck you to anybody that doesn't think that he does politically, which is fine. There might have been a little, you know, let's call it, I don't know, statutory rape going on with him. Well, he basically, I think he adopted a 15 or 16-year-old girl he was dating, and there's the whole thing where he shit his pants to try and not get into the army. So yeah, and basically everything that's come out of Ted Nugent's mouth after, say 1986, damn Yankees era, is just bullshit. But, he, I like that early music. I'm sorry. But he disappoints me as a, human being. I have this copy of Free For All just because I think it would annoy Ted. It's got, the rainbow Ted Nugent font. That's kind of one of the rare ones. So, that's the way I justify it. I listen to Ted Nugent, but I have the rainbow font. So that is number 13. Two artists that I like their music, but they disappoint me. Number 14. If you had to sell your vinyl and record player and one album you keep as a keepsake, I think it'd probably be a couple of, just because, but this one is probably the one. It's just visually, it's a stunning looking record, and colors are great. If anything else, it would be nice to go on the wall. This is Ashra Temple 7 Up, which features Timothy Leary on vocals when he was like hiding in Europe because he was wanting for drugs in America. He kind of made this with the guys from Ashra Temple, and just beautiful album cover, as you can see. Number 15, discuss your VC highlight of 2025. Well, this is a bit of a shameless self-promotion, shameless plug, but for me, the VC highlight was where I got to help host a exhibition of Money by Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and we did it at the show in Costa Mesa. And what we did was we highlighted a reel-to-reel tape version, a digital version, and then we did the 30th anniversary that Kevin Gray mastered with Doug Sachs, and we were lucky that Kevin Gray was also there, and so we got to talk about you know the whole events leading up to him mastering the 30th anniversary. And then also Kevin had time to discuss and highlight the stuff that he's doing from his own label, Coherent. And he got to talk about that, his gear. It was really, really fun. And I was really happy to be able to part of it and then put the video up on my channel. So that was my highlight for 2025. Number 16, your favorite musical biopic. So this is a bit of a landmine because you could say, well, is it a rock documentary? Is it an actual biopic? Is it a concert video? I mean, I could have favorites for all of these, but the one I chose was Coal Miner's Daughter, which is about Loretta Lynn and her life story. Basically, it was a launching point for Sissy Spacek. Also featured Tommy Lee Jones, also featured Levon Helm again, playing Loretta's daughter. Sorry, playing Loretta's father. He was the father to the coal miner's daughter. He was the coal miner. Anyway, so that movie is just great. It's a good narrative. It tells the story of her very well. Talks about her interaction with Patsy Cline and how she got on that scene, get on that tour. Also, the later years of Ernest Tubb, what it took for her to break into music. It's just a great, fun general biopic, and I highly recommend it. Number 17, give three reasons why jazz matters. Wow. Okay. Does it matter? Yeah, I think so. Um, one, it's true American art form. Full stop. It basically came from America. It's one of the few musical exports we have that the world recognizes as a true American art form. Um, two, um, it demonstrates how much creativity can be built around a set song structure. Um, for example, Just a Gigolo by Thelonious Monk, his version, he basically takes that song and completely deconstructs it to the point where you don't even really recognize what the song is, but just barely. And so then he improvises all around that structure. The other players improvise around that structure. That's the beauty of jazz, is that yeah, it's a song, but it's also a jumping off point for how much creativity you want to invest into it. So that's one major reason why jazz matters. And then C, three, finally, it produces its own rabbit holes. Okay. For example, let's say you're listening to this album, Grant Green. Okay. So who's on here? Grant Green, Joe Henderson, Bobby Hutcherson, and let's see, and Duke Pearson on piano, etc. But let's just think about Grant Green, Joe Henderson, Bobby Hutcherson. Okay, they recorded this in November 1963, and then basically those same players, a little while, few weeks, a little bit later, are on a Bobby Hutcherson album, The Kicker. So then you've got Joe Henderson, Grant Green, Bobby Hutcherson. Basically the same people again. Duke Pearson on piano, Bob Cranshaw, same people, and it's in December, so it's like a month later. Same guys playing something else, but now Bobby Hutcherson's the leader instead of Grant Green. So, okay, that's cool. And then you say, okay, so let me follow Joe Henderson for a while. So you went in with Grant Green, but you came out with Bobby Hutcherson and Joe Henderson, and same players, different format, or sorry, different setting. And then later on you get to something like Mode for Joe. This is my prized mono that I'll probably be buried with if my grandson doesn't want it. And basically here it is, 1966, and you're just following this evolution. So jazz creates all these little rabbit holes depending on which player you like, which style you like, you know, which type of music, do you like hard bop, post bop, bebop? It allows you to wait and find out what tickles your fancy. Then you can just go down that rabbit hole and see what you come up with. So that is why jazz is important. Okay, you're an innocent man on death row. What album are you gonna, what song are you gonna listen to? For me, there's a couple of songs. They're both other Grateful Dead, but the one I'm gonna highlight is Black Peter. It's on Working Man's Dead. I mean, all of my friends came to see me. I was laying in my bed and dying. I just want a little piece to die and a friend or two I love at hand. I mean, you could do a lot worse, but that song gets me every time, and it's probably what I'd want played. Um, Honorable mention to Angel Band by Johnny Cash, another great, beautiful, good old gospel spiritual song. I'd love to hear both if that's the last thing I'm going to hear. Number 19. Sell your favorite artist to a new listener. Well, I have a lot of favorite artists, but one of my favorites is Booker Urban. He's a tenor player. He was in Charles Mingus's band, and he died really, really young, 1971. So he's one of those artists that sort of came and went before the internet existed, right? And if you know him at all, you know him through his work with Charles Mingus. But he also, he was just an amazing as a solo artist. Sometimes he gets lumped into kind of the textbook tenor, camp, Gene Ammons, folks like that. But he was harder than that. he was hard, even though he's got an album called Textbook Tenor, which is ironic, but he was harder than that. He's like kind of a, post boppy. He had some grit, he had some fire and intensity. And, if I was going to introduce someone to Booker Urban, um, you know, basically, you can't go wrong with anything that's got book in the title. There's the book Cooks, there's the Freedom Book, there's the Blues Book, there's the Song Book, there's the Space Book, there's uh, Cooking, right? I mean, all those by Booker Irvin are great entry points. I picked this one specifically because you can just jump right in a lunar tune, and and you'll get it. Honorable mention also to Heavy, which is a little bit bigger band ensemble, but they do, again, You Don't Know What Love Is, which is a song you've heard a million times. But Booker is all up in that song, in and out, and bringing the band with him. It's just, it will blow your mind. And, he's my favorite tenor player. And I wish he got more love. But I will give a shout out to Chad for he did do a couple albums in his Prestige series. So he did this one, he did Exaltation, and I think the songbook as well. So that's a great way to access these if you want to try. But one last thing about the book albums, he had sort of a core group of players on those sessions. It was Jackie Barrett on piano, Richard Davis on bass, and Alan Dawson on drums. And so they played together as a unit and throughout all those albums, and they got really, really good. And everybody's playing was secondhand to everyone else in that ensemble. So Booker Irvin, Freedom Book, check it out. Um, Number 20. You're arranging a VC meetup in 2026 and excluding people you've already met, who are the three you'd want to meet? Well, let's see, in certain order, I would say Steve Westman, right? Because even though Steve had me on his channel several times and on different panels, we've never actually met in person. And we've been friends for years through Facebook, through different groups on the internet. And so he would be one of the persons I'd like to meet in the wild. Um, Second person, Reverend Rock and Roller. I follow that guy religiously. He's always cracking me up with his bits. And he seems to have his pulse on the irony that exists in the vinyl community. I also like his recommendations. 9 times out of 10, he'll recommend something, ethereal or spacey or ambient or just whatever, and I'll check it out. And it's like, oh yeah, pretty good. Thanks, Rev. So, Rev Rock and Roller, right up there. And then after, third person I'd really like to meet is Chris from the Groove Seeker. I watch him on his panels with Chance and Surface Noise, and I just like his contributions. I like the way that he's discovering jazz. I like to experience jazz through his eyes as he learns it. He's a fish head, that's always a bonus. And so Chris with the Groove Seeker would be right up there. And then I just want to give honorable mention to Elliot Cruz. I see him on different panels from time to time. I watch his channel. And, I just love hearing that North Carolina accent. It reminds me of where I grew up. And so Elliot Cruz would definitely be on that list. So that's it for my unofficial vinyl tag of 2026. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I have more stuff coming soon. And have a good one. Bye.